We are so excited that you're about to listen to the Cultivate OKC podcast. The podcast is a product of the Cultivate OKC Venture Accelerator. Our hope is that Oklahoma City will become famous for an atmosphere of flourishing. We believe in a courageous and connected movement of entrepreneurs leading redemptive ventures will play an outsized role in that story. Today's episode is a chapter in that story. Now let's jump in.
Hello and welcome back to the Cultivate OKC podcast. If this is your first time, Cultivate is a venture accelerator for Oklahoma City, and we are just passionate about bringing entrepreneurs together, and specifically entrepreneurs that are seeking to bring the kingdom of God here. And we are seeking entrepreneurs that are having a redemptive mindset more than an ethical mindset. And that's what we're about. That's what we're excited to hear about. And today I get to hear about and listen to two of those fellows that were in our second cohort and wrapped up just a couple of weeks ago. We have Brent Brown and Joan Curtis with MVP Insurance. Thank y'all for joining me today.
Hello.
Hello. We're excited to be here.
Yes. Can you all just tell me a little bit about yourselves? Just a unique thing, something that you'd like to share about yourselves, your family?
Sure. So I have a wife and a dog, no children yet, but we are high school sweethearts. So we actually met in high school, which I guess is something kind of unique. Back in a private school called Corn Bible Academy. And I kind of followed my wife off to college. She came to college at UCO, and that's what brought me here to Oklahoma City, and have just kind of been here ever since.
Awesome. What about you, Joan?
Well, I am number 7 out of 10 kids. I have siblings that are in their 60s and siblings that are in their 40s. So we kind of span a little bit. I have 70 nephews and nieces, greats, we have several generations that are still living. And I am a married mother of 4. My husband and I, Todd, have been married for 26 years this October. He's a retired fireman. And I got into insurance really because I was a mom, and I really enjoy helping people protect what they have. And it just kind of became a natural fit for me. But my kids are 24, 22, 17, and 14. I have a nurse who's an RN, and I have a nurse. I have a daughter who's an RN, and then I have a son who works full time now. And so they're older. And then I have a senior and a freshman coming this year. So it's a busy time for me. Let me just put that out there. It's a very busy time.
Well, thank y'all for sharing a little bit about yourselves. This is a super fun thing that we get to do and hang out a little bit with our fellows, kind of outside our normal rhythms of cohorting. So this is a super, super good thing. Let's get into MVP Insurance. Can you guys tell me a little bit about what it is? What is MVP Insurance?
Sure. MVP Insurance is an independent insurance brokerage. So we're an agency where we are direct to consumer. So we manage a lot of different carriers and give people access to different carriers for home, auto, life, and commercial. And so we work with people from a lot of different spectrums, maybe a business owner who might own property, or maybe a single mom who has several kids who are driving. We deal with a lot of complex cases. And then we also really like to help people who are really wanting to scale and to do more. So their insurance is a big part of business, and we really do love to do the commercial side of it. So, but we help pretty much anyone between the ages of about 35 to 65 is kind of our target. That seems to be who we help the most because they seem to benefit and really have something to protect. But we've been doing this about 6 years, Brent and I, as partners, and he is the operations side. I could not do life without him. He makes sure the light goes on when I turn the switch on in the morning. It's amazing. It's a miracle. I always say, let there be light, and it's there. And I'm more on the sales and marketing side, and we've developed a team of about 8 people who work for us. So, and everyone in our agency is licensed, but the Lord owns this agency.
Mm.
So we're excited to help people. And then we get to share our faith as well as business owners. That's a very important piece for us. Do you agree, Brent?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a whole lot more to add to it. You kind of hit every single point. So, yeah, we've been in business for about 6 years now, going on 6 years. And it's just been amazing to kind of see. And I think really just the perspective that we come from insurance and really being able to use that redemptive frame that we learned in Cultivate, that's part of what's kind of set us apart from the beginning. It was so fun going through Cultivate and actually having definitions applied to what we were doing. And we're like, we're doing some of this stuff. This is great.
Yeah.
We learned so much from it to be able to take from and actually learn and grow even more. So it was wonderful.
That's awesome. It is validating to have your secret sauce actually been like, no, yeah, that is what's going to get you where you need to go.
Well,
That's
and
awesome.
it's really amazing too to see that there are other businesses and entrepreneurs who have that same heart, because a lot of times you will feel like you're on a mountain all by yourself. And that's the benefit of having a partner who's also a believer. I'm grateful that I can go to Brent and go, hey, we need to pray about this. But now we have people outside of our agency who are rooting for our success and helping us and praying over us, and also having just access to people who've done things bigger than we've done, so we can go in and go, hey, how do we do this? We've never scaled like this. We don't know what this looks like. And so having those mentors who come in and pour into us, that's so invaluable as a business owner.
For sure. That's awesome. Yeah. So speaking of having people pour into you and kind of and we'll go more in depth with Cultivate and the experience for just a second afterwards. But what is the direction that MVP Insurance is going in right now? Like, what are you guys looking towards, just venture-wise, strategic-wise, operation-wise, whatever you want to talk about, leadership? What does that look like right now?
Sure. So we're currently looking to hire fantastically talented producers. So if anybody who's wanting to sell insurance happens to be listening to this podcast, come seek us out for sure. But we're looking to hire some people to just to kind of build our network within. And then in the long term, we want to open some additional locations, and we have a long-term vision of being able to actually open a call center of sorts for people who are dealing with physical disabilities, and to be able to give them an opportunity to earn a really good income with residuals that a lot of times they just don't have.
Right.
Well, and not just that, but a lot of times with those disabilities, physical disabilities, you don't have a mental disability, you can do the job, but it's the opportunity you're lacking, because people think that you have to be outside of your office to build a business, and really you don't anymore. COVID kind of proved that to us. And those people with disabilities could earn or replace or exceed any assistance they might need. Or if they're like, hey, I really need this assistance, my husband is the one who's on assistance, so I'm limited on how much money I can make. But, here he's at home and I need to be with him to be his caregiver, but I can work maybe 4 hours a day. Well, you can sell one policy and make more than you could working a traditional job, just through commissions. So it is a vision that we want to do that. And that is a big ask for us, because we've never run a call center, or had an IT company or anything that would involve a large server of sorts and all of the cloud-based things you have to do. So we're really praying into that and seeking God out. And then the financing. Cultivate's been really great to say, hey, what is your ask? And give us room to be able to develop. What does it look like to ask for funding for that, or investors? So that is a long-term, like really long-term goal. We shared that in our application with Cultivate, and like the first day we were there and we were supposed to pitch, she's like, and this is what they want to do. And we're like, wait, we didn't want to tell everybody about that. But it was there to stretch our faith. And so we're really grateful for that, because that is something that's really important to us, to be able to give people empowerment over kingdom finances, to be able to do things for the kingdom financially, as well as give them the empowerment to come out of poverty. because they feel like they have to be in this space because they have a disability. It's like, no, you're not disabled, you're differently abled. And I believe that we can really help people within this industry.
That's awesome. How did that idea come about? Because it's not something that you just like.
That's a great
question. Like a lot of people don't. That's not something that a segment that people really focus on, as you said, because there's not that many opportunities. Right. So how did that come about?
So a lot of it is in our roles. So I'm a vision person. So I actually have one of my children has a learning disability, which he struggled through school. He did graduate. Thank you, Father, for that. But in that, I was looking at how limited he was for employment. And then I started to get to know a lot of people within that disabled community for different abilities, like, kids who physically had disabilities, but they didn't have mental disabilities, or maybe they have ADHD, or maybe they have, so they can't just sit at a desk all day, those types of things. And then I was one day praying about it, and the Lord really kind of dropped this in my heart. One of my desires is to employ people. That's kind of like our superpower here. We can give people a job. And what does that look like? And how do we diversify this industry? Because we're in an industry that's predominantly white, middle-aged males. I mean, even Brent, more so than I, are under the threshold of the age. The average age of an insurance agent is about 55 to 60. Mm-hmm. So how do we bring in good talent and give people those abilities? Well, you have to, when you're in sales of any kind, but commission-based sales specifically, you really need to have that hunger and that desire. But then a lot of people come to this industry because they want that flexibility. But even then, a lot of people in that sector of those disability communities, people with the physical disabilities, maybe don't realize that this is even an option. Because they think, oh, well, this company hires vets, or this company hires, well, what if you could work from home? What if you had the ability to still be able to go to your doctor's appointments and do what you need to do to take care of yourself while creating a decent income? We're not telling you we're going to make you a 6-figure earner. We're saying if you want to be, you can. But I really felt like the Lord dropped that in my heart. And then when I shared it with Brent, he was like, absolutely. And he totally grasped onto the idea, because he is also somebody who, when he started this business, well, I'll let you tell him let him tell you his part of that, but tell them how you started MVP to begin with.
Sure. So, goodness, it starts several years ago, back when I was selling cars. And I was definitely selling cars from a different industry than who I sell insurance to. But it was in that process, I had to help several people get insurance, because a lot of the clients that we worked with didn't have insurance when they would come into the dealership. And so we would go to one of probably 20 insurance agencies within a stone's throw away of my dealership. And every single one of them, it really felt like you were going into the DMV. They treated people just more like a number than a person. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, well, I could do so much better than that. So I started working with a captive agency, one of the larger people that you probably heard. And after about a year of working with them, I realized that I needed to become independent. So I worked with another independent agent for a year, and then was able to start out on my own. But it really all was about being able to offer a better level of service than what I had experienced. Mm-hmm. And then as I began to learn about insurance, it was crazy the amount of stuff that I did not know. And one of the things that we do in our agency is we try to really make sure that our clients are educated on what they're buying, that they understand it. So Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. And that's part of what we do to try to really make sure our clients understand what it is that they're getting, because so many people, they just pay a premium, but they don't understand what that policy actually does for them. Yeah. And at the time of claim, that can be detrimental, especially if you don't have those coverages that you need.
Right. No, that's a great point. I mean, even like the other day, my fiance and I went to the doctor because he needed to get a COVID test for work. And we walk in, and it was an urgent care. We had no idea what was happening. And we just said, yeah, go get a free COVID test. Let's do it. We
Right.
get in, they charge us the $50 copay, and I'm sitting there like, this is ridiculous. But in that moment, you really do feel helpless because you can't do anything until after you've paid it, and then you can maybe call somebody and be like, hey, this wasn't okay. And so it really does, it makes a difference when you understand what you're getting yourself into. And Joan, you said something about I guess I interpreted it as like your power to hire.
Yes.
Where
so
like,
yeah. So I think everybody has gifts and talents. And, we talk about and Cultivate a little bit about, stewardship. And I believe that stewarding what you are good at. So, for example, I may be a public speaker, but what if I could be a great public speaker? Would I have more effect for the kingdom? Sure, I could naturally speak, but what if I invested a little of my time on this and I actually could help people? So we believe our superpower has to do with educating people. And when he talks about educating, a lot of people say, oh yeah, we explain coverages. No, we explain to you about, okay, you are, Natanya, you are a young woman who's about to get married.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you're newly married, you probably don't own a lot. You're probably buying your first house. You're probably, you don't have a big savings account or a retirement account. So your coverage is going to look different than mine is at 53 years of age with a retired husband and 4 children we're going to be empty nesters soon. So being able to walk through, okay, you have this house and you're married.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, I have life insurance through work. Well, does he? Because he doesn't own that policy. So actually, his work has life insurance as long as he works there. And you just bought a house. So if something happens to him, you lose his income. And now you lost the person who's helping you make the house payment. So you probably should own that policy yourself so that if something happens, then what you need is available to you at that time. So to pay your house off, for example, or to give you some time off to grieve that loss. Nobody goes to work the next day and goes, oh, well, this was my day yesterday. That sucked. Let's go sell some more insurance. That's not how it works. So when we say we like to explain it, we really give you a 5th grade language of what's going to happen when you make this decision. Cover yourself this way. People don't realize they're actually responsible to know what they're signing. And I don't know anybody who actually reads those documents ever. But with my license, other thing that people don't know about insurance is our license, it weighs heavily on the words that come out of our mouth. So if I tell you hypothetically, and I'm saying hypothetically because I don't want this recorded, and then they go like, she said this, but hypothetically, if I tell you, you go to the store and get some milk and I'm going to cover your car while you're on that trip, and then you go in and you get an accident, now I'm responsible to pay for that because I guaranteed coverage because my license is attached to my word.
Yeah.
But we always say in insurance, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. So we make sure everybody signs everything. We don't cancel things when people call and go, hey, I want to cancel my insurance. Awesome. Send me an email detailing what you're asking for. Because we don't want to be responsible for somebody's bad day that they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times young people like you will come in and go, oh, well, I bought a new car, but I want the minimum limits. Or I just bought my house, but I want to save as much money as possible. You don't realize when you bought that premium, what you were buying was a scaled down version of a policy. So for example, in a house, they have what's called ordinance and law. Ordinance and law covers you for something that is no longer grandfathered in because at the time of loss, the city ordinance had changed prior to that loss. So decking on a roof, for example, if you have a 2,000 square foot house, it might cost $6,000 to $7,000, but that's not part of your policy unless it's endorsed in. But if your agent didn't tell you that, you don't know. You think you have all the things.
Right, yeah.
You buy a pair of shoes, there's laces. You're like, oh, well, that's normal. Well, there's no laces in insurance. You have to actually ask for and say, oh, I want this endorsed onto this policy. So when you get those documents, you want to look at it and make sure everything they said to you is on the documents before you sign it. And the other thing is when you get mail, people are like, oh, junk mail, more insurance mail. My husband put junk mail for me to look at, and there was a $3,000 check for a refund in our mail from an insurance policy when we sold a house. And he would have thrown it away.
Yeah.
So open your mail because change, they have to notify you in writing. So those are things that we like to try and help our clients overcome those challenges to make sure that you have a person, not just a 1-800 number. You can call Brent and actually speak to Brent or anybody in our office who is a licensed agent who is licensed in our agency can make changes or help you answer questions. So even if we're, off doing podcasts and all these great things, you still have access to someone who can actually help you get the job done, and you'll get the same answer every time because they're trained. We have a standard. So that redemptive quality comes from consistency and making sure we're actually covering people the way we say we're going to cover them. And our word is our bond.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. No, that's great. And you gave me a little insurance lesson right there, because it really is. It's something that like people don't expect you to know it, and they expect you to go about your life not caring if you know it or not, and just, but in the moment of crisis, and it costs a lot to not know what's happening. So that makes a huge difference. And you spoke about the redemptive and being consistent. Tell us a little bit about you guys' experience in Cultivate. What is life? I've been saying post cohort, post Cultivate. What is life like right now for you guys?
Well, I think we left Cultivate, and this is a couple of weeks since the last session, and we both went on a business trip, and I got COVID, and a whole bunch of stuff has happened. So we're still kind of at this point to where we need to sit down and just unpack everything that we just went through, because there was so much that we got. I can say one of the most beneficial things that I got from Cultivate was really just the way that you made us, through those pitch decks that we had to do and the presentation that we had to do. It really kind of made Joan and I sit together and talk about what our strategy was going to be, because, in our business, we had set a 5-year goal of buying a building, and we thought that was a pretty lofty goal, but I think God had other plans, because we had our building within 9 months. And so we hit this big goal, and it was very strange, because it was like, well, what's next? And I think for the first time after several months, we've been in the building for several months, being able to go through the Cultivate program really helped us to, take some time and actually discuss what our plans are going to be kind of in the future. And we'd had like general ideas, but to sit down and really flesh them out, I think was probably one of the biggest benefits that I got from it.
Yeah. And I agree with that. And I also think, one, helping us communicate what was next, because literally we hit our 5-year goal in 9 months, and we're like, okay, now what? And it almost felt like the end of a book. And you're like, is there another book? Like, do we get to read something else? Like, what's happening? And so it helped us clarify our direction a little bit. But I think one of the other things I really loved is, to me, it was more like an induction to a secret society of amazing, godly people that really see us and what we're doing and want to come alongside with no benefit to them. Like, that was like mind blowing. The people we had access to that were our mentors and were sitting with us. I think that 16 weeks was too short to get to know them all, but now it's like we have access to them for life. If we really want to connect with any one of them, they're all like, it's an open door and we're here to help. And I think it was like almost like an introductory course. Like, there needs to be like Cultivate 2 and 3 and 4 so that you can go through some of this and actually go, okay, I want to focus on this one leg that we talked about. I think the biggest day for me, there was 2 specific ones that were really big. And one was the finance day, where Gary Brooks, who is First National, he restored the First National Bank, and he shared his testimony. And I thought I had really big faith or I thought I had at least a medium-sized faith, and I realized that I had no faith, that I had to really start from scratch to build my faith, because he believed for such large things. And I know that we've said we want to do this online call center and do all these things, but it was so big, I almost didn't think it was possible. But he made me see, you know what, this really is kind of possible. Not kind of possible, it's probable. But I needed to have somebody who'd gone before me. And the second day was the prayer day, which was the last day where we talked about prayer, and they spoke into our lives. And Brent and I are partners, but we each got a separate word from God specifically for us. And it was like crazy how intimate it was. Really, I mean, from people that we'd never really met before, but who had prayed for us. And like, the Lord is speaking to you, and here's what he's showing me. And so that was life altering for me as well, because it reminded me of who I was and where God was taking us next. And so I think the bigger picture is both of us need to just sit down and decide who our next phone call is, because that's really where we're at. We're like, we just had to get through this awesome trip that we got to go on, which was free and amazing. And it was a gift to us to be able to do that with our spouses and have time off. But then also now to be able to make the phone call and go, okay, I need to talk to this mentor for this precise thing. And so now we actually have some direction to do that.
That's awesome. And there was something, I was talking with Eric and Zach earlier, and I think I was telling him something that the Cultivate team is trying to, I think has kind of reshaped the way we look at it too, is whenever we had the Praxis team come out, Mel, Chris, and Peter come out, and Mel said something about how redemptive entrepreneurship isn't something that you achieve. It's a process, it's a journey. And so with Cultivate, the hope is that it's just a building block, and it's just kind of an incubator for getting you excited for what the Lord has for you.
Yeah.
Whereas you do the real work in your venture, but regardless of if you have a venture or not, you are now a redemptive entrepreneur. But it's not like, oh, here's your badge, now you're done. It's like, okay, go do it, right? Well, and so it's super exciting.
It's funny to me too, because you kind of feel like you're in a lane, and like you have blinders on, and they showed you, it's like, wait, let's take those off, and like there's 7 lanes there. It's like, oh, wait a minute, I can do this and this at the same time. What?
Yeah.
Because really, having a business is like having an infant that never grows up. Like, it really, because just when you think you're walking and they're talking, they're eating on their own, something happens, you're like, oh, okay, start over and get yourself to that place. And so I think it's interesting, because both Brent and I have desires to work on our business, not in our business. Because if you're in your business 100%, then you really have a job, you don't have a business. So we'd really like to be in a point where we have the freedom and build this business to where God can call one day and go, hey, Brent, I want you to go on a mission trip, and I want you to pay for 3 other people to go. And for him to go, okay, click, and get up and go and do what God's called him to do, because he doesn't have to be here.
Right.
So
yeah, that's awesome. And that's a beautiful model to have. I mean, I think very biblical and very sound. So that's awesome. Well, I have one more question for you guys. And Brent is going to answer this first. Yes. So if you had a mic for 15 seconds to the whole world, what would you want to tell them? What would you want to know? What do you want them to know?
Goodness, this is a difficult question, but I really think that if I had 15 seconds, it would be something along the lines of, we all have more in common than we have differences. And we tend to so focus on the differences, and that breeds so much hate and dissension that it's hard to get anything done. So my encouragement, if I had something to say to the entire world, is let's all put these differences aside and let's see what we can find in common and work together to build a better world.
Yeah.
I think that's the first step.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you're totally right. What about you, Joan?
Do I get to answer that? Okay. So
yes, of course.
My 15 seconds would be, you are non-negotiable to God. And he did all the things he did so that he could be in relationship with you. And I think we take for granted that we have a loving Father and that we have a Savior who is our Lord. And I think there's a lot of times that people get wrapped up in emotions and processes, and they try to reason their way out of things. And the Bible says to not lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him. And so if you stop for a second and go, okay, how do you feel about this, God? Let me see your word and seek this out. Your answer will come quicker. And I'll tell you, God blesses those who are in fellowship with him. And so I would tell everyone, take that time to have that relationship and make it a priority, because everything else stems from here. You just don't know it. You're so your stuff that you're looking at other people going, why is he blessed? Why is she blessed? They're walking out their salvation. They're working their salvation out on their own. You have a calling all of its own, but you have to be in fellowship with your Creator to see what that is. And so it's not that you get to identify as anything. It's that you are made in the image of God, and you have a relationship with a Father who cares. He's not an abusive Father. He really wants good things for his kids. So we have to seek him out and seek out the relationship and be in communication with him. And I think if you do that one thing, life will change completely. Financially, emotionally, relationally, all the things. If you get that one thing right. The God you serve is your number one priority. If you get that right, everything falls into place.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it leads everything. So, and it bleeds into everything too. So that's awesome. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this and talk a little bit about what you guys do, what you're passionate about. It's been a joy. This has concluded another episode of the Cultivate OKC podcast. We have just wrapped up our application season, and so we're excited to meet our new fellows for cohort 3. If you have any questions about Cultivate, would like to talk to somebody, please reach out. We're on Instagram, Facebook. You can go to our website, www.cultivate.city, and we'd love to talk to you and tell you more about what we're passionate about and our vision. So, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Cultivate OKC podcast. We are committed to helping everyone in OKC flourish, not just the privileged, connected, or credentialed, but everyone. That is why we exist, to nurture and multiply that movement. If you're an entrepreneur of a nonprofit or a for-profit and would like to learn more about the Cultivate Venture Accelerator, go to www.cultivate.city for more information. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of Cultivate OKC.